Monopoly by Grit.
Welcome to Monopoly, Season 3, Episode 1. Time flies as we speak. We have already done about 8 episodes. And here we are on Season 3. Today we are going to talk about a very, very interesting topic, which is NDIS, which has been a very hot topic for a long, long time, but now it's getting up the steam. Today we have a special guest who is Ash from Savvy Spotter, who is an NDIS specialist in this space. Welcome, Ash.
Thank you for having me, Naveen.
Brilliant. Before we go on to property, have you played Monopoly as a kid?
Very much so. Monopoly is a very interesting game. It's a real life situation, isn't it? Yeah.
Exactly.
With a bit of luck, which you need.
That was the motive behind us coming up with this term Monopoly for this podcast. So
that's a good thought there.
all right.
So get out of jail free card by any chance?
Oh, that was my favorite when I had no properties and when others are having properties. All right, let's talk about property. NDIS, I mean, this has been there for a while, but I think now it's getting up real steam because people are looking for cash flow positive investments right now, with the, especially with the current climate.
Correct.
Let's talk about how this all came about,
right,
and then what's the real significance for financially as well as socially.
Yeah, sure. So the NDIS itself, I think, went as a national rollout somewhere in 2013.
Yeah.
But prior to that, it was called various different names. Somewhere around 2007 it started. States like Queensland had it for a while, very successfully. But it rolled out nationally back then in 2013. And the idea behind that was that the government recognized that there was a large majority of people living in Australia that are some way, shape or form we could call disabled.
Yeah.
Now, those disabilities not necessarily are they severe. Some are very minor, but some are significant, some are permanent. So either which way, there was not proper care being given.
Yeah.
By what I mean by care is several cases, a very, very wide topic. Care could be just care to lead as normal a life as possible, or to be independent. All that sort of thing was not being taken care of.
Yeah.
How many times you and I both know, I mean, I know a few people who have autistic kids, and they just, the parents can't do much with them. They take him to a special school, that's about it. And some people even don't do that. And then they come home and sometimes they're aggressive and they give a sedative to calm them down. So that's not really looking after the disabled person.
Yeah.
So what the government wanted to do was give them a better quality of life. So they rolled this out. And unfortunately, sad to say, the education level that the government provided is very not the best.
Yeah.
So it's although it's been there for that long, no one really knows about it. Even there are lots of candidates who can benefit from this who don't know about it. I know a couple of people who knew that they could get NDIS support only 2 years ago.
Right.
So that's how it started. And of course, the NDIS comes in two parts, the SIL and the SDA. SIL means supported independent living, which is the care element of it. And SDA is special disability accommodation, which is the housing side of it.
Yeah.
Now, you can just have SIL support if you want in your own home.
Yeah.
Or you can have SDA support with SIL support.
Right.
The people who qualify for housing are generally quite extreme cases.
Yeah.
So there's a process involved in getting this all done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so does the government expect the investors to build these houses, or the government is building some of these too?
No, see, the technical definition of an SDA provider is they are the ones who provide the property. So someone's got to build this house and house it, and they have to be accredited registered in the NDIS,
Yeah.
and they will build these properties, with specific requirements, and provide it to the SIL supporters to house them.
Yeah.
Right now, what happened was the investors got involved because government wanted it's like a double-edged sword. So the government is giving a very high rental returns because a house has to be built with specific requirements.
Yeah.
It's an expensive build. So the government realizes that, and that's the reason why the government's giving a very high rental returns.
Right.
So it's not like the government is throwing money at them. It's just that they're encouraging people to build these homes,
Yeah.
right? So that it will be built to specific standards.
Yeah.
So investors, any investor can do this,
Yeah.
but you have to do it correctly. Otherwise, you end up with a very expensive house with no returns.
Yeah. True.
Yeah.
So meaning it has to be, you have to abide the guidelines and then work with the right people.
Correct. You got to have the right people to guide you and right providers signed up, and there's a process involved. We can discuss that if you like. Yeah.
Yeah. So there is some financial benefits to investors as well as you said, there are social benefits too, because it's a service to the
Absolutely.
community, because there's so many of these kids as well as adults who need this help, and it is definitely a social service for them.
Oh yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So the social element is honestly, you can't put a price on it. So there are disabled, particularly kids. There are lots of kids under 17 who ended up being in a much better position, as they grow up, because they were given the proper training. And some are mentally disabled, some are physically disabled, visually impaired.
Yeah.
So all of them, there's a carer that trains them, guides them, coaches them, helps them to be as independent as possible. So that's a huge element.
Yeah.
And financial returns are obviously very, very good. Even as of 1st of July, the government raised the income, rental returns significantly because there was not enough houses.
Yeah.
So the government recognized this, and the NDIS pushed the rental figures up. So if you build one of those houses, it's a lot of return if you do it right.
Exactly. And if we explore the challenges as well as the regulatory compliance requirements, starting from building a house to renting them out, finding a provider, shall we discuss that a little bit more in detail?
Sure. So so basically, you got to have an SDA certified or registered SDA provider. Put it this way: if the provider themselves are not building these houses, and you and I are investing in these houses, we need an SDA provider to manage the property, manage the runnings of the property. Right. And then we will need relevant SIL providers to provide the care. And most often in the industry, SDA providers know the relevant SIL providers. It's pretty much like you and I know which builder to go to.
Yeah.
Right. So they find these relevant carers, and based on the care plan, because each disabled person gets a care plan.
Yeah.
Care plan it consists of what sort of housing they need and how much they'll be given funding for housing.
Yeah.
Plus what sort of care they need based on their disability and the severity of the disability.
Yeah.
And what care is needed and how many times a day, 2 hours or 3 hours a day. All those is a prescribed thing. So once those dollars are allocated, the SDA provider has to then liaise with the SIL provider to provide the care to these people as per the recommendations.
Yeah. And again, SDA provider is equivalent to a property manager in a normal residential scenario, but they are specialized to do what they're supposed to do for these participants.
Correct. Traditionally, the SDA provider built their own house and managed it themselves.
Right.
But right now, there are a lot of SDA providers who do that, mind you. But then right now, more SDA providers manage the property on your behalf.
Yeah.
If you invest in it.
Yeah. Right. And then SIL provider is, again, that's where the actual care is taken care of, and they take care of that.
That's correct.
Yeah.
And the seal could be very wide. It could be just a simple carer to take the. By the way, these disabled people, we call them participants. That's the technical term.
Yeah.
So the carers could be a carer who takes the participant to the park,
Yeah.
or the carer who reads them books, or it could be physiotherapists,
Speech therapist. Yeah.
So it could be anybody that's been prescribed for that particular care plan.
Right. So just like for a investment property, a property manager plays a critical role, SDA provider plays a huge role of your whole investment.
Absolutely, yeah.
And from an investor's point of view, what sort of strategies can they use to get into NDIS property?
Yeah, so what I would do is, if I were to give one piece of advice to investors, it's to not Google and look at what it says there. Because in Google, they talk about ridiculously low prices and high returns, and they get carried away.
Yeah.
And what happens then is they end up getting into hot water. So essentially what I would do is I will work with a company who can provide the investor with the SDA providers that are capable of running a house successfully, plus seal providers who can run the care, plus a builder that is experienced in building these things,
right?
Not the new kid on the block who's giving $100,000 reduced prices. They have to combine together. The biggest problem is that SDA specs, so to speak, you can get it online. So any builder gets it online and can build a house. Now, but that simply doesn't guarantee you anything.
Yeah.
Because different providers, different seal providers prefer certain characteristics in the house. You know, some providers prefer to have carer rooms with external doors. Some prefer to have the carer room at the back. So unless you work with a provider from the start, you cannot guarantee yourself that you're going to rent that out.
Yeah. Because end of the day, they are the ones, SDA provider is the one who's going to get you the tenants or the participants. And
that's correct.
If you don't work with them hand in hand right from the start, you will be
in trouble.
Because these are not cheap houses. I mean, you're looking at 850,000 plus at a minimum.
Correct.
Based on the location, of course.
Yes.
But absolutely.
Yeah. I've had a couple of horror stories now where, and the NDIA meets, I think, once a year, towards the end of the financial year, and they change rulings and policies. Some of them they action immediately. Some of them they give a bit of a leeway to start from the next year or something. I had a situation where the client built a home, and they have decided not to. Certain oven doors no longer could open top to bottom. They could on left to right. And then there were situations where the shower could not be handheld anymore. They had to be fixed. Little things like that. And in some cases, the gradient of the driveway was changed. Required gradient. Now, if you don't know this along the way, you have a very expensive repair to do.
Yeah. I mean, end of the day, it's about what your client wants. In this case, your key client is the participant. So and the SD providers know what they want. And
correct.
So it's vital that you work with them. And as you rightly said, not every builder can do this.
No.
You can get the spec from the internet and do it, but then it's about experience.
Correct.
If you build a house and if NDIS comes and says it's not compliant,
you're done.
You're done.
Exactly, yeah. And that is why a lot of the bigger builders, for example, your AHBs and the Metrocons of the world, don't want to dabble too much in this space because it's a very time-consuming, very specific thing. It's not for everybody.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And going into construction of NDIS home, it's cost-wise, it's about $200,000 more, but there's so much into one of these houses. If you take an example, high ceilings that can be standard, but then you get beams going across in case if they have to be lifted.
Yes.
They get disabled toilets, antibacterial coatings, and
Correct. Yes.
bigger corridors. So there's so many little elements which goes into it.
Absolutely. It's a very finicky thing. No lips on the shaft basins. And if it's a robust category, you need to have stainless steel taps and this and that. If it's high physical, you don't.
Yeah.
And there's vandal-proof walls.
Yeah.
So you really need to know what you're doing.
Yeah. So you touched upon some of the categories, and some of them might know about it. So let's talk about the 4 categories we have in terms of participants. If you can walk us through.
Sure.
Yeah.
So improved livability, fully accessible, robust, and high physical support are the 4 main categories.
Yeah.
Improved livability, it's very hard to sort of this could be all intertwined, and there are certain areas they merge together. So improved livability is more cognitive disorders and so forth.
Yeah.
Right. Fully accessible need wheelchairs, but may not be permanently needing wheelchairs. High physical support is very much bed bound or stationary because they've got spinal injuries, brain damage, and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And they most often need hoists because they haven't moved. They generally tend to be rather overweight.
Yeah.
And carers need to take special care because they only sit down or lie down, they get bed sores and stuff. They need to move them around, So there's a lot of involvement there, but they're quite immobile in that respect.
Yeah.
Robust, on the other hand, is physically quite able. It's in fact physically virtually nothing wrong, except mentally they are at different levels of disability.
Right.
So autism, for example, certain categories fall under this, and they can be very destructive. They can scream, yell, eat things, bite things, stab things.
Yeah.
So you need to build a house. You can't possibly build one house per person, right? It's not financially viable. So when you're building a house, you need to know which houses to build to get the maximum result.
Right.
Right. Now, some improved livability categories cross the board of robust, and then halfway through, after the first 2 or 3 years, they end up getting robust funding.
Yeah.
Right, because their behaviors have changed now along the way. Right? So, for example, if you build a robust home, high physical support possibly cannot live in it because they won't have the hoist, provision for hoists and all that. So unless you build a house in a way that have what is known as high physical ready or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
But then expense factor comes into play as well because now you're building a house with everything in it.
Yeah.
But once it's registered as robust or high physical, you can't sort of have other participants in there. Like, for example, if you register as a high physical home, you can't have a robust in there.
Right.
Right. So at the time of registration, you need to decide which way you want to go.
And based on the category which we are going for, the house specs will change too, right?
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. Generally speaking, improved livability participants can live in a robust home or a high physical home.
Yeah.
Because their infrastructural requirements are very, very minor.
Yeah.
Right. Fully accessible, on the other hand, is very comfortable living with high physical homes.
Right.
They have similar sort of needs.
Yeah.
Yeah. Robust possibly can't live in a specifically high physical home because they wouldn't have the vandal-proof walls and shatterproof windows and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So when you're building, this is where you need to be smart. This is why you need the providers in line. This is why you can't do it on your own.
Exactly. And if you can you think about a success story of an investor who has got the rewards using NDIS homes?
Yes, actually, I know a few builders, the owners, they've invested in one themselves.
Yeah.
and some time ago. So as a result, I've seen some of their returns. It's incredible. So, I mean, you're talking making 100,000 is pretty much very ordinary. In this, per annum. In this field. So I would say 70,000 as a minimum.
Yeah.
Right. It can go all the way up to a couple of $100,000.
Yeah.
Depending on the thing. So I know quite a few builders who have actually done that themselves.
Yeah.
Because they know the value in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, someone like a builder going into this shows something because, they can make huge profits.
Correct.
If they do what they do, but then them going into something like this means something.
Correct. In fact, that particular builder recently told me that he might stop building these things and he might just own or operate a few of these.
Yeah.
And let it be out there because he says there's a lot of work for me to build a house. I make nowhere near the money.
And if you compare a normal residential investment as well as NDIS investments, what really motivates them, and then what are the potential drawbacks of an NDIS investment someone should be looking at?
Drawbacks from an NDIS. Well, there's a lot of, I've got to say, there's a lot of demand for housing.
Yeah.
At the same time, there's a lot of untenanted NDIS homes out there. Something to the tune of 2,000-3,000 houses without any participants in there.
Yeah.
The reason for that is those houses were built ad hoc with no providers backing them or anything like that. So they've ended up in a situation where they've built a house. Now, I've seen a house with 3 participants, 1 carer with 2 bathrooms. That won't work.
Yeah.
So they can only ever have 1 participant in there.
Yeah.
You see? But the person who built it didn't know that.
Yeah.
So now his best he can get is a single participant in there. You're looking at 60,000, 70,000 max, which is still a lot of money. But that investor is now wondering, this is not the best I could have done.
Yeah.
So the downfall is if you don't build this correctly, you could be in trouble.
Yeah.
And you need to affiliate yourself with people around you that know what they're doing. And best is if you can get a management agreement signed at the very start by a provider, that's even better.
Yeah.
And I know most providers don't want to do that because it's a risk factor for them. Because generally one of these houses take anywhere between 6 to 8 months to build.
Yeah.
Right. And as you know, as a provider, sometimes they know what sort of participants are in the pipeline waiting for homes. At other times, in 6 months, circumstances can change.
Yeah.
For example, there might be 2 robust participants in this area, but within 6 months, they would have found a place. All of a sudden, they're not in the market.
Yeah.
So that is why most providers don't like to sign up management agreement.
Yeah.
But some of them are very good at managing their participant pipeline, and they do.
And other thing I can think of is in terms of funding. Not every funder likes NDIS homes. There can be valuation issues, but there are specific funders out there who will specialize on this, and then they can get you funding up to 70, 80, sometimes even 90%. So again, talk to the right people, and then we can get you the contacts.
This is right. The 2 areas where the funders generally fall short is valuation of the property and assessment of the serviceability. So most ordinary top 4 banks, even tier 2 banks, will value the property as a residential valuation. And they'll compare the house to the next door house. And they'll say, hang on a minute, this is a 300 square meter land, 20 square meter home, and you're charging $500,000 for the build. This other house is $350,000. What's the difference?
Yeah.
They don't get it. So there are specific valuers who are trained for NDIS and funders who know what to do. They're the ones you need.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I can show in 2 fingers how many of those funders are there. So you really need to know, because most brokers, unfortunately, are not aware of this.
No.
It's not their fault.
Yeah.
They just don't know.
Yeah. So funding and then choosing the right builder is the main thing.
I think it's best to, I would put it as funding and affiliating with yourself with the correct
Provider.
company who knows the providers and knows the system. So all you have to worry about is fund the project.
Correct. And then these are starting around 850,000 onwards. So it's not a normal investment property where you can buy for 500,000 or 600,000.
No.
It's because of the construction cost involved.
Correct. In Victoria, we'll be really pushing it to find something under 800.
Yeah.
In places like Rockhampton, I've seen around 780 mark, 780 mark. South Australia, I've seen around 750.
Yeah.
But then again, there are other issues too now. In South Australia, most SDA builders, sprinklers, for example, is still not mandatory.
Right.
But there are a lot of providers who handle HPS, high physical client participants, who won't even look at a house without sprinklers.
Right.
Even though it's not mandatory. So that's another downfall. If you don't know this stuff, you're in trouble. Yeah, prices of houses, South Australia would be 750-ish plus.
Yeah.
Victoria should be 80-ish plus.
And if you look at the benefits, first is the rental return. It's massive. You're looking at a minimum of 60, 70 or most probably over 100,000.
Yes.
Whereas a normal residential property, you're looking at a 3 to 4% return in terms of rental, which is 25,000, 30,000, 40,000 if you're lucky.
That's correct. I mean, if I were to actually work out the average of the properties that I've been involved in, the average is last year, the average was around 110,000.
Right.
Now, this year, I'm guessing it'll be even more.
Yeah.
Because
they have increased
the rentals. Yes.
Yeah. And how about the depreciation benefits? I mean, these are long-term investments. I mean, these participants, for the participants, government is paying them for 20 years, right? So these are long-term investments.
Correct.
And depreciation is going to be pretty good too.
Very good.
Because it's a brand new property.
Yeah, and also the fact that there is additional infrastructure, purpose-built for a specific cause.
Yeah.
Depreciation is a lot higher than a normal investment property.
Correct. Any other tax advantages you can think of for an investor's point of view?
It is a cash positive investment, no denying that.
Yeah.
So I think the depreciation element is the one that you could hang your hat on.
Yeah.
You got to trade, if you're an investor looking to pay less tax, this is not the right fit for you.
Yeah.
Because however much you claim depreciation, your positive income will be much higher.
Yeah.
But then again, let's say you're earning $150,000 and you're paying, $40,000 tax.
Yeah.
This will give you an additional $100,000, and you'll probably pay another $30,000 tax at the very worst.
Yeah.
So what? You still got $70,000 surplus.
Yeah.
So that's the way I look at it.
Yeah. Of course.
And but in terms of tax benefits, I think that's pretty much all they can really claim.
Correct.
Yeah.
But the benefits of being a cash flow positive investment is much higher than the tax benefits, because these days cash flow is the king.
Absolutely, yes. With what's happening with the RBA rates and all that,
Yeah.
And all the while, the land that you have, mind you, the land doesn't need to be a big block of land.
Yeah.
Land only needs to be around 300 square meters minimum.
Correct.
You can have bigger land if you want, but not necessary.
Yeah.
So the land will increase in value, no doubt.
Yeah.
As any other land lot would.
Yeah.
But that is there. Another thing I can tell you is this: I've found a lot of investors who already own land in established areas, because the issue now is this: there's a lot of houses being built in the west and the north and all those areas because it's affordable.
Yeah.
Mount Waverley, Glen Waverley, Burwood, Camberwell, there's nothing.
Yeah.
There are plenty of disabled people in those areas.
Yeah.
but there's nothing to offer.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, if you and I were to buy a block of land, it's not cost effective
Yeah.
in those areas.
Yeah.
But I know a few people who already own the blocks of land, bought it 25, 30 years ago, have old houses, getting piddly little rent from these houses, knock it down, they build 2 or 3 NDIS villas or something like that.
Yeah.
Be much more lucrative.
Yeah. Definitely. No, I know a few investors who do that. It's basically they have the option of doing a couple of units and selling it, or do a couple of these,
Yeah.
which generates so much of cash flow for them to.
Absolutely. I
Live
knew
on.
someone who subdivided into seven blocks.
Right.
5 of them, he built double-story NDIs with commercial lifts
Right.
and sold the other 2.
There you go.
Yeah.
And this is a question I got asked from another client. When it comes to the resale, say someone wants to exit an NDIS investment, if there's a management agreement with the SDA provider is on, they can only sell it to another investor. Is that correct? Or-
Yes. For the process, there is this. If you have a management agreement with the provider, most often, I would say 99% of the time, provider wants the first rights to purchase from you.
Right.
Because for the provider, this is their livelihood, their income, and they've got participants in there.
Yeah.
And unlike a normal normal tenant, they're not participants you can suddenly offload.
Yeah.
There's a proper process involved. Just like getting them into the house,
Yeah.
getting them out of the house also not easy.
Yeah.
And they will not do anything to upset the participant.
Yeah.
Their well-being.
Yeah.
So they want the first rights to buy this property.
Yeah.
And most often they do.
Yeah.
Right? In other cases, if they can't buy it, they will know someone who would want to buy this
Right.
as an investor. So first option is to give them back.
Yeah.
If not, you can sell it to whoever you want, but person buying in will have to be an investor, as you said,
Correct.
and continue with the contractual agreements
Yeah.
as per normal.
And if someone wants to make sure there is high living standards for the participants, you just have to pick the right builder and go with the required standards so that, and as you said, if you can tie up a provider early on, then you know what's happening, and then all 3 parties are in sync so that you can quickly find a participant.
They're very, very true.
Yeah.
Very true. That's the safest bet.
Yeah. And what's the current demand for NDIS properties? So I'm pretty sure if you look at the supply and demand is so high than the supply of these properties. Do you have any?
Yeah, there's the current, as of June 30th, the figures show that about 500,000 of the Australian population, disabled population, is in the scheme.
Right.
And approximately 30,000 of them don't have proper housing. This is around Australia.
Yeah.
So there's a big dearth. There's a massive demand. They're scattered all over Australia, of course.
Yeah.
And obviously, the bigger populated states will have bigger portions.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's a huge demand at the moment. And I mean, considering the fact that in one of those houses, you can't jam pack 3, 4, 5 people. In fact, the government funding is done in a way that prevents you from doing, not prevents, dissuades you from doing it. So if you have 1 or 2 participants, you get the maximum rental benefits. And if you have more than that, the rental benefits per participant drops.
Yeah.
Yeah. So because they want to try and give the participant the best individual care as possible.
Right.
Yeah. So given the fact that you can, on an average, have 1 or 2 participants in a home, that's the average.
Yeah.
These 30,000 35,000, whatever the number is, you need at least 17,000 homes right this minute.
Yeah. And what trends do you see in the next 5 years? Do you see the disabled population increasing?
Well,
and is there a more supply coming in, or?
Well, yes, because the statistics also show that only 12% of the population, disabled population, are over 65.
Right.
once you go to 65, by the way, you can't claim NDIS. You go into aged care, right?
Okay.
So everybody else is under 65. So more than 80% is under 65.
Right.
And majority of them are in their 30s and 40s.
Right.
And there's quite a large number of kids up to 17.
Right.
So this number of disabled people will remain for quite some time till they get all the homes. And mind you, people are, there's other categories. There's some are by birth they're disabled. Some of them are through accidents and work cover situations and various reasons they get disabled.
Yeah.
So by the way, not everyone will get housing funding,
right,
because some NDIS considers them not needing
yeah,
individual care.
Yeah.
So, but the demand will definitely keep increasing. I can't see dropping for probably another 3 or 4 years at least.
Yeah.
I'm being very conservative here.
Yeah. And do kids get housing too, under 17?
They do. And I've seen a couple of instances where they a child participant went into a home along with the parents.
Right.
So in a situation like that, the parents have to pay rent too to the investor, the landlord, but they pay the normal market rent.
Yeah.
Right. So, but they're allowed to do that depending on the child and how old the child is and so forth. Yeah.
Yeah. Fantastic. Any specific geographical areas in Melbourne or Sydney or Brisbane where the demand is high? Or what do you see many investors are going into? Which state are we looking at?
Well, I think still Queensland, Victoria, and New South Wales are very strong.
Yeah.
Because of the population factor. Tasmania has started doing some numbers lately.
Yeah.
And South Australia is midway there, I reckon. Western Australia started as well.
Yeah.
Northern Territory, very new.
Yeah.
Still. So which suburbs are... The best I can do is this, to say it's very hard to say which suburb.
Yeah.
But if you know highly population, if you know an area with concentration of population, and if you're close to major hospitals, major mental institutions, all those things, it's a bulletproof sort of suburb.
Yeah. All right, here you go. As you said, it's a bulletproof investment. You're looking at a long term.
Yes.
Starting about 800,000 based on the state you invest, and typically over $100,000 in cash flow positive income.
Yes.
I don't think anybody would say no to that.
No, but once again, you got to do it right.
Of course.
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Ash, for joining me. There you go. That's so many valuable golden nuggets about NDIS industry and some insights. Hope that is useful to you. And don't forget to watch our previous episodes of Monopoly.
Monopoly by Grit.